Hey, I'm your host, Dr. Desiree Cassell. I'm an orthopedic and pelvic floor physical therapist specializing in women's health, aka pelvic floor. I'm a wife, mom of 3, foodie, lover of all things movement and nature, and I'm super passionate about educating, empowering, and supporting other women like you to find and maintain balance throughout all aspects of their lives, without pain, pressure, or peeing their pants. And this is the Balanced Momtality Podcast, where we will talk about all things pelvic floor, your core, and optimizing your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum recovery, providing you with the knowledge and tools so that you can feel like the strong, playful, and happy mom that you and your family deserve. Now let's get you out of those pads and back to loving movement. Fill up your water, pop in those AirPods, roll out your mat, and let's connect. Before we start today's episode, just a quick disclaimer that anything mentioned in this podcast is not meant to treat or diagnose any medical conditions. If you have any questions or concerns about your healthcare needs, please seek the care of your medical provider. This is also a safe space where we will be talking about very sensitive but important topics, such as issues with peeing and pooping, relationships, and even sex. So if you have littles around, probably a good idea to pop those AirPods in. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. All right, friends, we are back with another week on the podcast. So happy to be joining you here for another episode. We are in our second year now, second season. I can't even believe it. It's still just crazy for me to think I've been doing this for 2 years. We have so many fun podcast episodes varying from so many different things. We've got nutrition tips, pelvic floor tips, balancing all the things tips, sneaking in exercises, prenatal, postpartum, breath work, soft tissue work, foot health, neck health, you name it. We have probably got something on it for you. With over 100 episodes now, there is a little bit of everything inside of this podcast. So go search the bank if you are looking for something specific. And if you don't find it, come over to the Balanced Momtality Wellness and Support Group. It is free and private. And let me know what you want to hear on the podcast, because that is where I am taking in your ideas, your needs, your problems, your barriers, so that I can give you those solutions and education and awareness in these podcast episodes. I want these to be helpful for you. So let me know what you need, friend. Okay. With that being said, I also can't believe we just finished my 12-week Restore program. My first beta group just went through its 12th week. It is so nuts to think we made it all the way to the end inside my Pelvic Floor Core and More app. So if you have not, go download Pelvic Floor Core and More on your smartphone. It is accessible on your desktop, but the app on the smartphone makes it a little bit more user-friendly. And you do get access to the first week of my Restore program for free. That acts as a Pelvic Floor 101 masterclass where you get a deep dive lesson on pelvic health and a good 5-minute breathwork routine you can just hit start and work through. You also have access to tracking features like sleep and exercise and stress and pain and leaking and all the things we want to keep an eye on as we're working on optimizing our health and wellness. So if you have not, go download that app and keep an eye out, because we are about to launch our Beta 2 group for this 12-week program in the next month. You can start it whenever, but we will be launching that new group here coming up. So if you want the ins and the details, let me know. Send me a DM. My contact info is in the show notes below this episode. But today, I wanted to talk a little bit deeper into a connection that I have been talking to patients about pretty regularly lately, which has me thinking there's a little bit more stress in the world right now, and especially in mom life. I think April and May, this is probably going to come out in May. May's already Thursday. I can't believe we're already in May. This year is just flying by. But if you have school-aged kids, you know the chaos of this time of year, right? Everyone is squeezing in all of the end of year activities and sports, awards shows, performances, you name it, field trips. It is all happening right now. And I think people are starting to put more in April because May was so busy, because this year, April and May just felt like chaos. And so we are just trugging along. But with that being said, with stress comes more pelvic floor issues and more jaw issues, right? TMJ or jaw pain is very common when we have high stress states in our lives. And I don't know if you've heard me mention this connection before. I have definitely mentioned it in a few episodes, but I wanted to give this connection its own episode to dive in a little bit more in depth to it, because there is a huge connection between the TMJ or your jaw. The TMJ is the temporomandibular joint. So TMJ is what we call it, but it's just the jaw, right? So we can feel that jaw joint right in front of your ears. So if you take your fingers and you just place them right in front of your ears, you should feel that little prominence in your jaw, and you should feel it move when you move your jaw, open and close your mouth, if you will. And yes, there is a big link both in the nervous system and in our fascial physical body between the jaw and the pelvic floor. This can seem crazy, but after this episode, you're going to understand a little bit more why they're connected and how they influence each other. So if you're someone that has both pelvic floor dysfunction and jaw pain or jaw dysfunction, maybe it just feels tight or you can't get your jaw open normally or it locks up on you. We'll talk more about what jaw dysfunction looks like here in a minute. But if you have both symptoms, then you definitely want to pay attention to this episode. But maybe you have no jaw pain. You've never been told you grind your teeth, but you do have some leaking or pelvic floor tightness or overactive bladder or pain with intercourse or some pelvic symptoms. You might want to look up at the jaw and really start to become aware of how you're using that joint. Versus maybe you're on the other side and you do have jaw pain or difficulty getting your mouth open to certain degrees to eat certain foods, or maybe it locks up on you and you have no pelvic floor symptoms. Then you might want to put some awareness into your pelvic floor ability to contract, relax, and just that awareness in this space and our posture, because this does all impact both of these systems, and they do impact each other. So if we just look at the very obvious anatomical connection first, this can help us see how forces and posture and different alignments can again impact how these parts of our bodies function. And so if we think about our pelvic floor as that cylinder, or our pelvic floor as a diaphragm and our pelvic girdle as a cylinder, we can then see the rib cage as a similar cylinder and the diaphragm or as another diaphragm, right? Our breathing muscle that is called our diaphragm is a diaphragm. And if we look up even higher at our neck or our cervical spine here, that also is acting as a cylinder, and the vocal cords inside are another diaphragm. We want to stack all of these diaphragms on top of each other. All of these cylinders should be stacked directly on top of each other so that they can function and manage pressure together with those forces in between, all the way down from the pelvic girdle, all the way up to our vocal cords and our jaw. But depending on where we sit our head over that rib cage, it can really change where that jaw joint is. And this also changes your bite in your mouth. So even just feeling, if you slouch forward, let your head kind of hang forward in that tech neck or computer posture and bite down, you'll feel a difference compared to if you sit tall, kind of pull that tall line through that top of your head and stack those cylinders on top of each other and then open and close your mouth and bite down. You'll feel it bite differently in different parts of your mouth. And this is why posture is really crucial for our jaw health, for our dental health, for especially if you're getting any mouth guards or retainers fitted for your mouth. You want to make sure that you're in a good posture and holding that throughout the day, because otherwise your bite and everything and the tension in your jaw is totally different when we shift our head forward into that more common slouched forward head posture. So just be aware of that stack and aligning things, because the other connection here is this direct fascial link between the jaw joint, that TMJ joint, and the pelvic floor fascia. And what this means is that when we clench our jaw, that tension that creates in that fascial system also pulls on the pelvic floor, causing it to tighten, and vice versa. If you were to tighten and clench or engage your pelvic floor, that fascia is going to pull up at the jaw and then limit the space and movement it has up there. So we do need to really take into account this fascial connection and how they yank and pull on each other, because if all day or all night, right, you're clenching and grinding your teeth and you have no awareness, your pelvic floor is also getting that tightness all night long. And then we wonder why we get up in the day and we have leaking getting out of bed, or we have heaviness or pain moving around. We need to keep an eye on these spaces and release the tension. Because the other connection that we have here is that nervous system piece. We have parts of our body that are definitely more ingrained into that autonomic nervous system side of things in our body, which means that without us even knowing, right, we could be doing all the awareness we could, but on those times where you're not paying attention, your body might be just clenching and holding and guarding because of stress. So if you are stressed or having anxiety or feeling like you're kind of type A or overwhelmed, or just, maybe you're physically stressed out because of work and a job, or you didn't sleep well, or you didn't eat well, right? You're just feeling stressed, whether it's mental stress, physical stress, emotional stress, even environmental stress, which could be toxins in our environment, lotions, different things we're putting on our body. We have a certain stress capacity in our body. And when we are hitting that threshold of stress, and there's a lot of things we can't control in that realm, right? Like our busy schedules to some extent, we only have so much control over, how other people treat us, all of the different to-dos and pressures to keep up with things. There is only so much we can control in that state, that we do want to really take advantage of the things that we can control so that we can limit the stress threshold or improve the resiliency and that stress threshold in our body, so that we're not just clenching and guarding when we're not thinking about it, because that is what happens. And most of you have probably had that awareness of, oh man, I'm so stressed, my shoulders, my neck, like I'm just carrying so much tension today. Or if you do have TMJ, you also probably already recognize this, right? Like, you know that you are clenching and having more pain on days when you are stressed. You're grinding more. And this is typically why we grind at night. There's that stress during the day that our nervous system is so elevated that that's how it's trying to regulate, is by grinding at night. And this is not okay. This is too much. I mean, even just for your teeth, right? It's not healthy for your teeth. It's not healthy for that jaw joint. It's going to be grinding down at that joint. It's also going to be yanking on the pelvic floor all night. So again, just these connections can be huge to impact each other. And the cool part is, even though there's a lot we can't impact, right, with these different stressors and things, there are a lot of things we can control. And so I already mentioned posture. Posture is a big one. Think about that tall stack and align that cylinder of the pelvic girdle and the rib cage and the head directly on top of each other. And then also just being aware of that tension and guarding. Are you clenching your jaw? Start noticing, because we do have a optimal jaw alignment. And this is a position that puts our joint in a space that it's kind of in its neutral state. And we've talked about neutral positions for our joints, especially pelvic neutral, and trying to find that neutral stack of the pelvis and rib cage so that your trunk and your core is engaged in a neutral position. And our jaw, all of our joints at rest ideally are in kind of a neutral position, because if they're at an end range position for too long, this is where we can get extra pressure and wear and tear and arthritic changes. And so for the jaw specifically, optimal jaw posture is you should have your mouth closed, so your lips are touching, your mouth is closed, but inside your mouth, your teeth should not be touching. So ideally, there is still space. There's a little resting tone there where your jaw is just not falling on the floor. You're obviously holding your mouth closed, but your teeth should also not be touching. And so not only does our jaw have proper posture, but our tongue also has proper posture. And this can really affect our bite, our alignment in our mouth and our teeth, and also our core stability. And so with tongue posture, I know you probably didn't think you were going to get as into the nitty gritty here as going in far depth as tongue posture, but yes, it does all matter and it is all connected. And so tongue posture, this is where with your lips closed, teeth slightly apart, start to assess where your tongue sits in your mouth. Because the way your tongue should sit in your mouth is the back 2/3 should kind of be resting, but the 2/3 point, that mid-range in your tongue, should be touching your hard palate at the roof of your mouth. So your tongue should be suctioned up to the roof of your mouth slightly. The front third of your tongue, the tip of your tongue, that front third should not be touching your roof of your mouth. In fact, it shouldn't even be touching your teeth. It should just be dangling there, hanging out. And so check in at rest how your mouth, how your tongue are sitting, because even when you're exercising, these impact each other. I have patients suction their tongue to the roof of their mouth. If we're having a hard time getting stability through certain exercises, you can try this. Just suction your tongue to the roof of your mouth, let the tip of your tongue kind of hang freely, and then see and feel how much extra core stability you have. Do you feel stronger? Do you feel more stable? Do you have less pain when you suction your tongue to the roof of your mouth? Because you should feel more stability there, because it does help stabilize. It stabilizes the head and neck, which takes less pressure off and makes the core do its job properly. So again, it's all connected, and thinking about the alignment of your jaw and the alignment of your tongue can be very helpful. But we also down at the pelvis want to think about that alignment there and make sure your pelvis is also in a nice neutral position. When you're sitting, you've got weight through equal sit bones. You're not rounded and sitting on your tailbone, and you're not arched and sitting your butt, sticking your butt back and having most of the weight through the front of the sit bones. And so just make sure that you're having some awareness of the alignment, and then start thinking about the tension in your body. Are you clenching your jaw? Are your shoulders elevated? Are you clenching your pelvic floor? If you have no idea what that feels like, start connecting, especially at the pelvic floor. Most people know if they're clenching their jaw or not, but maybe not. Maybe you check in at that at your resting posture and alignment, and your teeth are touching. Your tongue is thrust up against the back of your teeth. These are signs that you're holding tension. Your jaw is holding your mouth closed when it shouldn't be holding so tight. And at the pelvic floor, start to connect. Your breath work should help it open, and then on the exhale, it should lift up and in slightly. If you're not feeling any of that, or it feels locked up, then breathe. Do some deep breath work. And that's where my other tip for you here is the breath work. We need to get that pelvic bowl open, and that initial engagement of the diaphragm and using that diaphragm to breathe and shift that pressure deep into the pelvic bowl is also going to tap into that parasympathetic system and really calm down that stress state and allow the muscles to soften both around the jaw and the pelvic floor, and also your whole body. The shoulders should drop, your forehead scrunch should go away. just relax that jaw tone, relax that pelvic bowl, and let it open. Really prioritizing that breath work. This is huge, especially throughout the day, because it helps your nervous system learn a calmer state of being versus just being in that high state, clenching, grinding, one thing after another, go, go, go state, right? We need to check in. Take that deep breath, reset everything, check your posture, and just know that this connection exists and we can really affect it. Soft tissue work is also very helpful here. Just putting your fingers in front of your ears and kind of dragging the tissue down, giving a gentle pressure and pulling down to both help open the jaw and relax it, but also to help get into some of those trigger points and tight muscles, tight fascia in the jaw space. Massage those muscles around the jaw, especially if it's tender. If you go poking in front of your ear and down around your jaw and you feel trigger points or knots or little round balls of tissue, or it's really tender, then work in that space. As a PT, we do work on this, and so I can give you more specifics if you want to get in on a coaching call or come and see me in person. But you can also try and figure out a way to massage both internal and external. Stick your pointer finger in your mouth and have your thumb on the outside and massage. Just get deep into those back muscles of your jaw. You'll be surprised, because what our jaw should feel like when it moves and opens is that it should open symmetrically and equally. So there's a few tests here that you can do to test your jaw function. One is called a 3-finger test. This is stacking 3 fingers on top of each other. So your pointer, middle, and ring finger are stacked directly on top of each other vertically, and you're going to stick them in your mouth, right? You're going to see, can you easily fit those 3 fingers in your mouth? If not, and you have a hard time getting those 3 fingers in and your mouth isn't opening wide enough, this is a sign that jaw is probably tightening and becoming limited with normal motion. This is also really correlated with headaches and migraines. So we want to keep an eye on those symptoms as well as range of motion and pain in the jaw, because tension can also increase the tightness and the position of the little muscles in the back of your head, causing those muscles to get tight and cause headaches. And so again, stacking that alignment of the head over rib cage, over pelvis, and relaxing those muscles is also going to help with migraines and headaches, which is just huge. But checking in on the muscles at the back of the head, checking in on the muscles around the jaw, and then yes, checking in on the muscles of the pelvic floor. Take your thumb in the perineum vaginal opening, give it a little swoop from that bottom 3 to 9 half, and see, is it tender? Does it stretch equally throughout? Do we need to pause and breathe and increase a little mobility and stretching there? Maybe you need to get internal with a pelvic wand. This is again where I can help you more specifically if you have any issues, but just start connecting and thinking about the awareness of these 2 spaces, grinding at night, grinding and clenching during the day. Clenching your glutes and pelvic floor during the day is also going to rev up your nervous system and make you grind more at night. So looking at these 2 spaces and thinking of the breath whenever you notice it, and also just throughout the day whenever you think about it, specifically to help with the stress piece of our nervous system and with our breath, we want to take a longer exhale than inhale. So what this looks like is an inhale of 3 to 4 seconds, and you might hold it for a second or two, and then an exhale of 6 to 8 seconds. So we don't want to get lightheaded and make yourself pass out, but you also want to start training and practicing that breath strategy where you have a longer exhale than you do inhale. That can be very helpful. But just start checking. The other way we can screen and test our jaw function is to, again, place our fingers right in front of the ear on top of that TMJ, right? On top of that jaw joint, you're going to put those fingers there. And again, you should kind of feel that jaw condyle, that bony prominence rolling and moving under your finger. And so what we want to see is with a finger on both sides of the jaw, you're going to slowly open your mouth. And I would do this in front of a mirror because then you can also see the variations in movement, because what should happen is you should see your jaw and your chin make a straight line as you open. So opening down, you see a straight line going down. That jaw makes a straight line. You should also, under your fingers, feel those condyles both at the same time roll under your finger and then glide forward under your finger. So if you feel one side roll first or one side glide first, and with that, you usually also see the jaw kind of make a squiggle or a line or a bend as it comes down instead of a straight line. This does indicate dysfunction, and it could be as simple as motor planning, and we just have to time the muscles correctly. It could be tightness and tension, not letting one side of the jaw open well. So this is again where if it gets too complex and these tips and strategies aren't helping, get in to see me or see a PT in your area that works with TMJ. I think a pelvic PT is still great for this though, because again, they're all connected, and a pelvic floor based therapist will see that connection and know how to get a more holistic whole body approach and resolution for you. And so just starting to use that actually as an exercise at the mirror in the bathroom, you can draw a straight line so that you can try and keep your jaw on that straight line and slowly work with the jaw as you're opening slowly to keep that in line. Keep the fingers on the jaw joint so you can also try and time it so that they are starting to roll and glide at the same time. The side that rolls later or glides later is the tight side. So that's the side you're going to want to do a little bit more soft tissue work on and dig a little deeper into. And then again, start trying to get it to open at the same time. This can be very, very helpful. The other thing I want you guys to think about when it comes to this connection is again, those vocal cords. The vocal cords and this alignment do put a lot of tension in that pelvic floor space if we're not thinking about it. And so when we're going to the bathroom, if we think about this vice versa, right? Like with the pelvic floor, we can actually impact the tone and tension in our pelvic floor with our voice. And this is something that's been around for generations, right? Especially when we think about birthing children. This is why there's a lot of weird, crazy sounds when it comes to birth prep, breath work, and exercise prep for birthing, because we can influence our tone in our pelvic floor with our voice. So not only during pushing a baby out, but also pushing a poop out and having a bowel movement. If you feel constipated or backed up or feeling like you have to strain in any way, I want you to tap into that vocal cord tool, because if we have, and you can feel it even just at rest, if you go to make a very high-pitched sound, you might feel your pelvic floor instantly engage and kind of lift up and in, versus if you go to make a very low humming sound, you might feel that pelvic bowl open and expand. And so yes, when we're pushing a bowel movement or a baby out or straining in any way, it can be really helpful to tap into that low humming sound and just get everything open, get the whole body tone to shut down and calm down, and really notice and utilize the connection with these two spaces, because it's good and bad, right? We can work on the jaw, have awareness, soft tissue work in the jaw, keep our jaw position in a good space, and that will also help relax our pelvic floor, calm down pain with intercourse, calm down overactive bladder, and then vice versa. If we're doing a lot of deep breath work and some soft tissue work and some postural awareness down at the pelvic floor, we can also lead to a softer jaw, less tendencies to grind, more improved motor control. And so think of these connections and start practicing some of them, because some of those, especially if you have some of these symptoms of tension, right? And the obvious ones are pain. So if you have jaw pain or tailbone pain or pelvic pain or pain with intercourse or hip pain or neck pain and headaches, like this is a big sign there's a tension issue there. But maybe it is just motor control. Maybe you have no pain, but when you put your fingers on those condyles, you see the jaw go around and make an S shape, or you feel them move at different rates, right? One side moves before the other. these are still signs there's dysfunction. And so we need to come in and use those fingers to palpate the muscles. We need to relax and open and start retraining that. Also checking in on that 3-finger width test from top to bottom, that vertical stack of the fingers, because if you can't get your jaw open to that 3-finger space, that's that normal range of motion, then we also are starting to get tension and tightness there. And then in the pelvic floor space, if you have, again, any of those pain symptoms, that's obvious. But if you have overactive bladder or that frequency and urgency where you feel like you're going to the bathroom a lot and that urge is intense, or you have UTI-like symptoms, these are, again, symptoms of tension, and that could be impacting both pelvic floor and TMJ. So let's just start bringing some awareness to that whole body, start screening. This is where my body check comes into play and is very helpful, because you're screening that posture and starting to stack those cylinders. You're screening that tension and trying to relax the forehead, the jaw, the shoulders, the belly, the butt, the pelvic floor. Shake it all out, relax all that tone and tension, and then take that deep breath, reset the nervous system, get some gentle expansion and stretching into those tight spaces, and then get in for some support and help if you need more guidance and you're not seeing much progress with these tips. But I hope this episode helped you see that connection and just gave you some awareness to start thinking more globally in your body and not just staying stuck at one part, because it is all connected, as you saw today. I can't wait to see you next week on Pelvic Floor Core and More with the Balanced Momtality. And again, go over to Balanced Momtality Wellness and Support on Facebook if you want more advice, more feedback, and also if you have some ideas or input for future podcast episodes. But until then, go download Pelvic Floor Core and More app, give that free weekend breathwork exercise a try, and please leave the app and my podcast a review if you haven't, just because it helps that information and those free resources get seen for other women that could really benefit from this knowledge and tools. I am so happy you're in my corner and showing up to hear my podcast each week. Can't wait to meet you here next week on the podcast. Otherwise, have a wonderful week and we will chat soon. Well, that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day. I know you've got so many other important things going on, but I hope it was helpful and you leave here with some tools to help you in your healing journey. And I just want to ask you, if you have found this helpful, to please leave a review on iTunes. Scroll down to the bottom of my podcast page and leave that 5-star review so it can help other women see this information. And also, if you want to be a part of my community of amazing women trying to balance all the things, great tips and insight and sharing stories and just motivating each other along the way, feel free to join my Facebook group, The Balanced Momtality Wellness and Support. I hope to see you here next time on the Balanced Momtality Podcast.